Hey guys, we just did a quick update video for Jordan to go over what's going on there. Rod is picking up some different welding rod or welding filler material. The aluminum's fighting us a little bit, so we just need to figure out which filler material we need. Normal stuff. But anyway, I wanted to get into the slide floor construction and some of the sidewall construction so that you guys understand it. It seems like a lot of people are starting to rebuild stuff. I get it, it's winter time. Fix your stuff in the winter time so you can play in the summertime, right? There's a lot going on here, and I've seen a lot of construction and how these things are built, and everybody's having issues with the slide, moisture, floor delamination. The floor breaks away from the bottom of the slide. There's reconstruction, and it's starting to make a whole lot more sense about what's going on. So I'm going to give you my thoughts, our solutions, and what a long-term plan is for how we're going to fix all this. I talked in the video, in the update video, we're using marine grade plywood for the floor. It does add some weight. Weight's always a consideration, but for the properties that we get out of this stuff, it makes a lot of sense. And the little bit of weight difference between the two the benefits far outweigh. So this is normal plywood. It's 3 plies thick. The center ply is more of a filler material than an actual strength material. And they do that for cost. If you're laying this stuff down at 16 inches on center, there's more than enough strength here. And if you're using 3/8 plywood, strength usually isn't a consideration anyway. Obviously, campers are different. We went with 3/8 marine grade plywood that we're going to laminate together. We'll have 2 pieces here. We did that because Advantech is another subfloor option. Advantech plywood is for subfloor. It is flat. It's flat. It may be a little flatter than the marine grade, but it's so negligible it doesn't matter. Marine grade is stronger. Marine grade uses waterproof or water resistant, highly water resistant glue. Nothing's waterproof unless you're building a pool, right? So marine grade plywood, it's got 4 plies. It's hardwood plywood instead of pine, which is the reason there's a weight addition to it. And that's important because this floor has no insulation. Unless you've got a higher end camper, definitely not an ultralight or a lightweight camper, but most of the slides that have a plywood slide floor, it's plywood. You've got plastic. This plastic material is their solution. That's underneath. If you're looking at the bottom of your slide and you see black material and you can move it around in any kind of space, this is literally the only thing keeping water from the bottom side of your slide. I guess the thought process is the bottom doesn't get rained on, so who cares? But everywhere this stuff makes a transition. So if it's the sidewall, the back wall, if you're at the top and it's the roof going to the sidewalls, the corners of both sidewalls, any place like that is a place for water to get in. In the floor, if you're living inside this thing and you're building a lot of humidity, especially in the wintertime, you've got crazy cold temperatures underneath, you've got warm temperature on top, and this is the only thing stopping the heat or the cold from coming in or going out. There's a lot of heat transfer that's going on right here. You ever set a ice cold drink down in the living room and it sweats like crazy? That's what's going on with this stuff. And the only thing stopping the only thing that's in theory going to stop any of this is this happy little piece of plastic that lives glued onto the bottom of the slide. So if you've got moisture over time setting in the corners, because now you've got 2 places for it to collect, it's going to run down, it's going to hang out in a corner, and you may not even have a roof leak. You could just have a lot of condensation because you're not controlling humidity, especially in the wintertime. That condensation is going to set down here, And over time, the condensation doesn't have anywhere to go. It builds up, it rots your stuff out. So we're gonna fight this on all fronts. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm gonna show you how we rebuild it step by step, but this is step one. This is what the top face of the bottom sheet looks like. We've sanded it, we've wiped it down with acetone, and that's just a real light wipe. All we're trying to do is get the glue. We want to open the grain up. We want to get it so that the glue accepts or soaks into this as best as we can. We're going to laminate this back down, but right now I'm going to use this piece. The sidewall, this is what the inside of an aluminum frame sidewall looks like. We're going to go back in this space. Originally, they had fiberglass batt insulation that was only 1.5 inches thick. 1.5 inches of fiberglass insulation is, I wouldn't even call it insulation. And again, all you've got out here is a thin piece of wood. You're filling exterior layer, and then you've got a thin piece of a 3 millimeter sheet or just a 3 millimeter sheet on the inside. That's the only thing between the inside and the outside. Everybody is on right now that's trying to live in these things full time. Why are my sidewalls sweating? What's going on? Well, it's just, there's not enough insulation going on here. And there's some things that we're going to do to try to slow that sweat down, but a lot of it's going to depend on how you live in it, and definitely you want to make sure and get a dehumidifier and get that humidity level down. The lower the humidity, once you get below 55% relative humidity, mold's not going to grow, and the lower you get it, especially in the winter time, the less likelihood you've got of condensation. The temperature differential is going to control some of that as well. Even if you're at 10% humidity, if you've got a big enough temperature swing, it'll sweat. But anyway, the sidewalls set on the floor, on the slide floor like this. If you pretend this is the outside, all they do is screw up from the bottom, and there's a piece of wood in the bottom of this. They screw it up from the bottom, and then this is where stuff hangs out. So you've got fiberglass insulation from the factory right here. The tube is hollow, so the tube, there's all kinds of holes in here because they've got wire chases. They've got nails that they little short nails that they punch into these things. There's screw holes from stuff being screwed in. So there's all kinds of places for air to get in here. If air's coming in, moisture's coming in, the inside of this tube sweats, it'll run down. The tube isn't fully welded. It's only tacked in one side. So any of that moisture can collect at the bottom of that. It runs out the hole that's just wide open, and it sets right here in the corners. So again, people go on and they look, and I don't have any roof leaks. I don't have any leaks at the bottom. I don't have any leaks on the side, but your floor still rots out. It could very well, more than likely, is condensation that's happening inside the wall structure itself. So our solution is going to be, this is 2-inch rigid foam, so it doesn't fit in here. But instead of fiberglass insulation, all of these cavities are going to be filled with 1.5 inch rigid foam. It's going to be tight up against the walls here. We'll fill all that in, and then the exterior will get glued on the aluminum side. There's contact cement that goes here, and then the exterior ply goes in, and then the same thing happens on the inside. We've got contact cement that goes in, that glues the inside wall together, and then everything's nice and happy. 1.5 inches of styrofoam is, unless it's super crazy cold, like 10 or below, 10 degrees or below 10 degrees, 1.5 inches is enough to stop condensation from happening from the inside to the outside. If you think of a high-end cooler, the cooler's only 1 inch, and it's 32 degrees inside and 100 degrees outside. It doesn't sweat, so it's the same kind of thing. The aluminum tubes, they're still open. We tried to fill these there's some filling options. I think it's a good idea, but the time it takes and the performance gains are negligible enough. We're not going to spend the time to do it. What we are going to do is go in on the inside. You'll see this more on construction, and we're going to add another thin layer of rigid foam on the inside before we go back with our panel, so that there's more of a thermal break between the outside of the camper and the inside of the living space. And all of that has to do with the thermal bridging that happens between the aluminum tube, the outside and the inside. In the wintertime, this tube's going to get cold, it's going to sweat. In the summertime, it just turns into a toaster. The tube gets heated up, it heats up the surface on the inside, and that surface is giving its heat up inside the camper, and that's air conditioning load. So Jordan lives in this thing, and we're going to try to do our best to slow everything down. When they put this wall together, all they're doing is using zip screws either up or down. We're going to go into some detail here. I'm actually going to, once the glue gets here today, we're going to glue this up, and we're going to just set up a time-lapse video. So you're going to start to see a lot of content coming from us, and it'll be short how-to stuff. But when we get to the point that we put this wall in, I'm going to show you what we're doing. Well, we're going to instead of just using zip screws, we're going to use some thin, probably 1/4-20 carriage bolts, and we're going to run that up and get a bolt in here, because I don't want any movement going at our joints. If there's any movement at all, it's going to try to start to separate, and even though we're going to spray this with polyurea, the stronger the structure is so that there's no movement, the better things are going to be over a long period of time. I'm not building this camper to go back. Jordan's not spending the money with us because he thinks we're going to build it back the same way that it was from the factory. We're building this sucker back so that he can pull this back into our shop 10 years from now and go, you know what, you were right. So again, this is not traditional construction. This is not how the factory did it. This is the way our shop is going to do it, and we're trying to solve problems, come up with solutions to fix a lot of the issues that I see going on. I'm on a ton of Facebook groups, and I see this slide floor delamination issue all the time. We've actually got it, we still have it in our camper. We've just gotten so busy I can't build anything with it right now. But anyway, 3/4 inch plywood is pretty much what they're using for slide floor construction. If you use two pieces of 3/8, we're going to use marine grade, laminate those together with the right glue. That all goes together, and that'll give you your 3/4 that you need. The factory is using a fancy router. They have this plywood manufactured for them. Basically, they're taking a CNC router and they're putting in a real fancy joint, and then they glue all this together. They don't get 4x8 sheets of 3/4 plywood unless you're into the crazy high-end rigs. So they're having this stuff built. They're doing it lower end. I saw a comment last night, use a 6-inch lap joint. If I overlap this stuff, this is 4 foot, almost call it 4 foot 3 inches. This entire sheet is holding itself together, and then there's another 4 feet down here, and it's all glued together. This is as close to a 4x12 sheet of continuous manufactured plywood as you're ever going to get and not be in the factory. This is plywood that came out, and again, it's impossible for you to see here, but it's low-end plywood. It's pine with 3 filler cores, so there's no strength in this stuff. If it's a filler, it doesn't have strength. It's just building thickness. There's 3 filler layers in this, and then there's a couple more layers that do have some strength, but it's nowhere near as strong as this stuff is. And when you think of a long slide, you're not trying to gain a lot of strength going from left to right or for the long section. the slide is setting in the camper. The ends, the inside ends, are still setting inside the camper. They don't ever come out. So the strength comes from how good is the structure from side to side in the corners, and how good does this corner here connect to the corner up here. I can set this wall back up and it'll make more sense. So when this is in the camper, you've got a face setting up here, and it's attached with what you can see from the inside. You've got a piece that sets like this, and it holds the slide in. So however strong this section is, from that point up top down to this point right here, that keeps the slide from falling out. So all of your pressure to hold this slide together is from inside the camper to outside the camper. And that's the reason we want to strengthen this whole section up, to keep that movement down to a minimum. If not, there shouldn't be any movement in this. But as we tie all this together, it'll start to make more sense. But again, the strength of the slide does not need to be on the long section nearly as much as it needs to be on the short section, from the outside of the slide to the inside of the camper. So we are going to spray it back. When we build it all back, we've got our exterior wall and our interior wall put together. We're going to mask it. We'll show that as we go. We're going to spray it with aliphatic polyurea on the inside. So this is the exterior side. The exterior is going to get a different polyurea, but where the actual walls of the slide are, that's going to be one continuous piece all the way around the slide. There won't be any opportunity for leaks. I'll show you that as we go. Material selection. We've talked about the marine grade. I would, if I was you want to go with marine grade. If you're anywhere near some sort of a big city, you've probably got a woodworking supply lumber yard that sells to guys like me. There's a lot of DIY woodworking shops. A lot of them have plywood, and you'll find a much higher grade plywood for the same, if not less, than if you try to go buy it at the big box stores. This stuff, I don't buy enough of it. I don't really get that great of a discount on it. Obviously, as we get bigger, we can get bigger volumes of it. But even at the level that I buy it, my local hardwood supply store sells this about $18 a sheet cheaper than I can get it from any of the big box stores. And then they've got it in stock. The big box stores have to order it in, and it just turns into this whole thing. So before you start to build one, if you want to do marine grade plywood, find a supplier, and it's probably not at a big box store. Once you've got that, how do you glue this stuff together? I've spent the last 2 weeks chasing materials and adhesives and all of that to get this slide built the way we want it to go back in Jordan's camper. Jordan kind of dropped this on us a little bit, and I knew I was ready for the challenge, but it did take a little bit of time because I hadn't made all the contacts that I want. But this is 3M 5010. It's a polyurethane structural adhesive built for cabinets, woodworking, stuff like that, and it's a commercial product. You can go on Amazon and search for this stuff, and they're charging you a lot. The cheapest I found it on Amazon, was it like 22 bucks a tube, Noah? 40 bucks a tube. That's a lot. This slide so far, we've rebuilt the roof section of this on the exterior, and we used about 3/4 of one tube. This section of the floor is going to take probably 2 tubes, maybe a tube and a half. We'll see how it goes. So you're going to spend some, if you want to go down our rabbit hole with this, you're going to spend some money on adhesives. Liquid nails, all that. Liquid nails is great for a residential flooring application. Some of the subfloor adhesives that you can get from your big box stores, fine for a subfloor, but a subfloor doesn't go down the highway. a subfloor doesn't move at all. It's got a 2x8, 2x10, whatever, and it just sits there and hangs out. In this application, the manufacturers are using a higher end adhesive, and we wanted to go that way as well. So 3M 5010 is what it is. If you want to go to Amazon and buy it, that's cool. If you want to buy it from us, we're not really set up to do a lot of online sales stuff. There may be a point in time in the future that we are, but if you do want to buy a few tubes of this, give the shop a call. We'll get you set up. We're not going to charge you the Amazon price. I'm working with my supplier to figure out what I can do with it. I've got to be careful because we're not set up to do 3M retail applications, so I'm probably going to set this up as an installation kit and just send you a package of an install kit instead of trying to sell individual tubes. But my biggest focus is to make this stuff accessible so that if you want to do this stuff at home, you at least know how we're doing it, and if you've got the capabilities, then you can get to that point. What I'm really hopeful of is the DIY guys that want to get to this point. You can save yourself a ton of time, well, not time, you can save yourself a ton of money if you want to do the put together part yourself and then just bring us the slide. You can't spray polyurea at home. The machine that we've got is crazy expensive. The material that we spray is crazy expensive. It's under controlled environment. It's just a thing. It's not a DIY process. But if you want to build a slide, you could throw it on a flatbed, drive it to our shop, and we can set this thing up, prep it, spray it in probably 4 or 5 hours, and then you can take off and go back home. That's the reason, a lot of the reason that I'm showing some of this DIY stuff is, if you guys want to come to us, that's where let's face it, I got to sell a whole lot of tubes of this stuff, even if I'm making $10 a tube. I've got more expensive taste than to live on $10 a tube of profit. So what we're really looking for is, if you want us to spray the exterior of this thing, we can work together. I can help you rebuild this thing. You can bring it to us for the final steps. Save yourself a ton of money. We get a little bit more business in the stuff that we're doing already. But anyway, 3M 5010, we're going to show you in another video. We're going to put this on, we're going to wiggle it around, we're going to set the piece, we're going to drop our alignment pins in, and then we're going to go in and get all of our screws in. Our screws are going to clamp this together. That's how we're going to bond this together. The 3M Fast Bond contact cement is safe. It's a water-based product. It's got no fumes. This stuff, the 5010, doesn't have any fumes either, so that's great. The 3M Fast Bond is what we're using to glue rigid styrofoam to the 3mm or 5mm layer of wood. So when we're going back, if this is the inside, the rigid foam is all done. It's in there, it's happy, it's done. We put this stuff on, we roll the whole face of it. I'm gonna hit pause and answer the phone. Hey, Stacy was sick. Well, Stacy's still sick, I'm sure, but anyway, I didn't know she was here. So Stacy got the phone, so we're back, sorry. So you take the contact cement, you get it rolled on the inside or the outside, whatever you're working on. You roll it on this side, and then this sticks to that. If you're using this stuff, once this sticks to that, it better be in the right place, because once it's touched, any kind of pressure that's put on it, it's stuck. It's contact cement, it's a one and done. So setup time for this is legit. You've got to get everything set up, you've got to get it all in the right places, you've got to get your alignment marks set up, because when you set this stuff down and boom, you're done. And then you roll it out, you get a really good bond, and that's what we're using to bond the inside panels, especially, to the rigid foam. Again, you can get this on Amazon. It's expensive in these small bottles. It's expensive in the big bottles, but we get it 5 gallons at a time, so it's less. If you want to get it from us, you can. I have talked to our supplier. Again, I can put a little installation kit together for you and send it out in a box and get this stuff to you. But this is Fastbond 30NF. There's a 30M, you don't want that. You want the Fastbond 30NF. It comes in either clear or a green. Either color works, it performs the same. The green lets you see where you put it. But you take a real thin adhesive foam roller, you roll it on, you want it on both surfaces, you want a good amount of it. It soaks in to the rigid foam a little bit, it soaks into the wood. You want enough adhesive there that it's all soaked in, and there's still enough there to, when they get together, and stick permanently. The temperature ranges for both of these is way below zero, like down in the 40s and 50s below zero, and way past 150 degrees. So heat isn't going to be an issue. That's another issue with things like liquid nails. That residential stuff is designed to work inside a house. The inside of your house is always going to be air conditioned at some level. So that's the reason we're not going back with a lot of those products. One, they don't hold as well, and two, they don't hold up over time because of temperature differentials. But that's the material that we're using. Marine grade plywood on the floors. This 3mm and 5mm panel, you can get it at most of your big box stores. I've found personally the orange big box store has a little bit higher grade than the blue one, and the other one that's always got 11% off. I don't even know if I can mention that, so I'm just playing the game, I guess. But anyway, we like to go home to get this stuff in the 3 and 5s, and that's what we use. It's not crazy expensive. It's pretty easy to work with. I think that it covers pretty much everything about how we're going to put the floor together. I'm going to wait. I'll show you. There's a bevel up here. You can actually see, do I have that in the camera? You can see the filler layers of plywood. There's a exterior, an outside piece of ply, and then there's a filler, and a filler to get the depth here. There's no strength in these 3 layers. There's only strength in the outside 2 layers on either side. So this plywood is 3/4 inch, and I can still flex it side to side, and that's just on the short side. But anyway, we'll get into some more construction. We're going to do some time lapse, and we'll get back to you. I hope this helps. If you've got questions, feel free to shoot us a message on Facebook, send us a message on, you can email us, or you can call into the shop, and we'll take care of you. I hope this helps, and we're going to get done here, get back to work, get this thing glued up, and we'll see you later. Thanks, guys. Later.